Welcome to the You World Order Showcase podcast. My name is Jill Hart. I'm the founder of The Empathy Edge, and this show is built for up-and-coming life, health, and transformational coaches who are looking to share their coaching journey, grow their practice to change more lives, and be the change they want to see in the world. If you're an up-and-coming coach and would like to be featured on this podcast to talk about your coaching journey, struggles, and success stories, please visit jointheyouworldorder.com, and don't forget to subscribe to get notifications of the daily content. Hi, and welcome to the You World Order Showcase podcast. Today we have with us Lori Ough. Lori is a Reiki master and a psychic medium. I'm really excited to hear how these two connect. She specializes in Reiki readings, energy clearing, animal communication, and straight mediumship. And she's also getting into coaching, and we'll talk about how she integrates all of that in as well. So welcome to the show, Lori. It's really exciting to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this. Yeah. And then for a moment, I'm like, who's she talking about? And I'm like, oh, yes, I do all those things.
It's you. So have you known all your life you were a medium, or is this something that you've
That's a really good question. I've definitely always felt connected. I don't think that I knew exactly what it would feel like to be a medium and to be able to do that more in a defined way, like for other people. But personally, I know that I have always felt connected to spirit guides, just feeling very empathic and connected energetically to people. I experienced bigger loss when I was a young person. I lost a brother and a grandfather quite close together. And I feel like that was one of those like big events in my life. And I always felt them around me, and I always just had this sense that they weren't too far away. But I don't think at a young age I would have defined it the way that we try to define things now. And so, yeah, just as I developed and did various other things to get to mediumship, when I formally committed to the practice, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if I was going to be in a room full of quote unquote natural born mediums, or if it was something that you could learn and develop. So I think there was a lot of contributing factors to get me to that place where I could actually call myself a medium. But I do feel that there are so many people that do have pieces of it, whether or not they go all the way or they commit to it or really dive deep into it. I do believe that we are all connected and we have that possibility there for us. Send some light love to the chicken.
So we just narrowly avoided disaster here. As we were talking before getting on the show, sometimes things happen. And in this case, one of my chickens had escaped the coop, blew the coop, and my dog was trying to lick it to death. He likes to lick the feathers out. And fortunately, I got her back in there, and all is well in the world.
So, wow. You did that very quickly. You handled that like a breeze.
I'm a pro at it these days. She just sits down and lets me pick her up. I mean, it's not like I have to chase her all over the place, which I used to do. So back to the topic at hand, being a medium and being born with it versus a learned skill. Do you think we all have the ability to feel the other side or communicate with the other side?
Absolutely. I don't know why you wouldn't, you know what I mean? Because like, I'm not, any different than anybody else. I don't think, my understanding. But I have chosen to be committed to a spiritual path. It wasn't always mediumship, but I've always been, working on clearing my energy and healing and being receptive and being a listener and tuning in to people's energies, my own energy, the energy around me. So I think is it nature versus nurture? Is that the expression? Like I don't have all the answers, but I believe that we're all connected, and so I choose to believe that it's all possible for all of us. Yeah. Yeah. Whether you want to or not, that's the choice, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that sometimes people would try to block it, but
Hmm.
maybe some are born with more of a propensity towards hearing from the other side and
Hmm.
than others. But I I I do think that it's something that you can I don't want to say learn, but
Hmm. Hmm.
tune into, I guess. I
Hmm.
don't know how you
Yeah,
would say
that's how
it.
I describe it. Yeah, it's like tuning into it, right? It's a frequency.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, absolutely, people can be very natural at it, and it's happening for them all the time, and they can turn it off for various reasons. They're told to turn it off, they're fearful. I think there's lots of variables in that as well. Myself, I I don't know if this is actually a choice or not, because obviously I don't have the definitive answers on everything. Otherwise, I would be evolved and moved on, I'm sure. But my understanding, is like I don't really want to like actually see, a ghost per se, which I don't even really see it that way anyways. But that was kind of what I thought when people would say, "Oh, I see this" or "I see that," that they
Mhm.
were like seeing something on the outside of themselves. My understanding is, and how it works for me, is if I say like, "Oh, I'm seeing this," it's more, I'm seeing it like in my imagination. It's very much a similar feeling as if you were imagining something. It's kind of in this space of your third eye and your crown. It's that clairvoyance, it's that clear seeing. And I'm quite fine with that. But as a young person, I remember like walking into a room and feeling an energy, and I was like, I don't want to see anything. But I definitely I could feel certain things that were validated, and I was like, but I don't want to see anything. So yeah,
I wonder
definitely
if that
fear. Yeah. Hmm.
I wonder if that didn't stop you from seeing things, because I have seen things. I,
Yeah.
a couple of
Yeah.
times I interacted with those things. Um, they they weren't real good experiences, let me tell you that. But
Hmm.
I have to wonder if things don't
Hmm.
don't materialize
Hmm.
because we're like, I know you're here, stay invisible.
Yeah. Yeah. Stay where I can't see you. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious about that too. Like, did I have that ability and then I turned it off, or did I just block it right from the get-go? I mean, I'm not sure, right? I grew up in the time of like the movies of Ghostbusters and stuff like that, where it was something to be afraid of, and poltergeist and these different things. And yeah, so I'm more curious about it now. I don't have any fear anymore. So if that's something that, wants to come through, I'm definitely more open to that now, because I know that I don't need to be afraid. And also, I think it's okay if we're not, um, that we have that choice, right? Like maybe my nervous system and my capacity couldn't handle that, or it wasn't the right time for me to go into that, and I trust that as well. So yeah, I trust in the timing of things too. Hmm.
Yeah, and you're at different places at different times of your life. So I, I think I think we go through seasons where, we're
Hmm.
more open and less open, and then we're more open again.
Hmm.
So how does the Reiki and the
Hmm.
psychic mediumship go together? I don't know.
Um, how does it go together? Well, I learned Reiki over 20 years ago. I guess it was a bigger spiritual awakening that was happening in my life. That's a term that I've learned more recently. I didn't know at the time. But I did a very deep dive into meditation retreats, and spent some time in a monastery, and was, just going inward. And then I was doing yoga teacher training and this sort of thing. And I was still feeling like kind of like an unease that I just, even though physically I was doing well with the yoga and meditation I was learning so much and doing so much clearing. It's like I had an itch and maybe it was a nudge, and I found myself gravitating towards Reiki energy, and yeah, that's a fun story. But I could go a couple of different ways there, but I'm going to try to keep it connected to mediumship. So when I went into the Reiki learning, it just opened up so much for me. I had past life experiences. I met my mother-in-law, then my husband. You know, it was so there was like a deep familiar, how do you say that? Like familial, like
Familiarity.
family connection. It's like I literally met my new family through Reiki. So my mother-in-law became one of my mentors, and she is not about the labels. She's an artist, and she's like, the only rule is there is no rules. And so I just learned everything from her, which she wouldn't call it mediumship, she wouldn't call it psychic, but she did all of it. And so I think that it just opened me up to that. And you know, my clairs opened up more. um, so how do they relate to each other? I think Reiki is really helpful in supporting the practitioner and going through because when you start to become a medium and you really start to develop and focus on that, there has to be this sort of clearing that happens, because when I show up to give somebody a Reiki, a mediumship reading, I need to be fully present. You know, I can't bring all my baggage with me. I mean, it might still be there, but I'm kind of leaving it at the door, let's say. And I need to be fully present so that I can be receptive to all the information that's coming in and communicating it and responding to my sitter and all the multitasking that's involved. And so for me, I don't know any different. So it might be a little hard for me to pull this apart, but I feel like Reiki has opened me up as a clear and present channel, and it continues to do that. I still need to receive Reiki, and I still love facilitating Reiki for people, but I still need it for myself as well. And I just find that it brings through insight, it brings through connections, it helps with ancestral healing, it helps with past life healing, which I don't need to do so much anymore, but once in a while things come up. Yeah, it's just so all encompassing that I just feel like it helps with everything that I do, not just mediumship. Yeah.
We were talking before, everything is energy, and it just has different labels, and being grounded in your own energy before like inviting in other energy, it's got to be very, very important in terms of probably self-protection more than anything else. Just
Yeah,
to know where you are, where your boundaries are, and where the other energies are coming in, and how to define them. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
I know that you do energy clearings, you do Reiki readings, and you do communication with animals. That's so fascinating. So let's talk about the communication with animals for a minute, because I
Yeah, sure,
just
sure.
experienced my
Um,
experience.
well, again, I mean, I feel like a lot of people do animal communication to varying degrees. Whether you've been trained in Reiki or not, you know, I think we all, and I know for myself, I had this connection with animals before I learned the things, or learned what to call the things. Maybe you could say it that way too. But you know, it's that feeling of the animal being close to you, and you know, so in healing, you just kind of have a knowing that they need healing right now. And the funny thing I find about animals is that they tend to not need like a lot, you know, because they don't have that ego mind to sort of like get through, you know. They just like they just absorb the energy, and I feel like they don't typically need like a very long treatment, you know, they just kind of take it in. And so if you have animals, I think you kind of get that connection for the most part. For most people, they just feel that connection. They kind of know when their animal is off, or they maybe see, maybe their animal is grieving, or they're just not feeling well, or they're just kind of sensing what their animal is experiencing. And so when you're doing animal communication, you can do with animals that are still with us, and you can do with animals that have passed, and it's really similar. Like it really is a similar energy. Especially I find with animals, it can almost be a little bit tricky to tell if they've passed or not. So if somebody says, oh, I'd like to have a reading for my cat, and they don't tell me, sometimes it can be a little bit tricky because I can be picking up on their energy, but I might not know right away if they've passed or not, because it comes through so clearly either way. Yeah, so that's very interesting. So I'm able to do distance Reiki for animals, and offer them healing or animal communicate. I don't do a lot of mediumship animal communication. It just hasn't worked out that way, but I have friends that it just comes through for them just like so easily, and maybe I'm just not like 100% there yet. I don't know. But the animal healing, absolutely. That's like, it's, it's just how you would imagine it to be. It's just very peaceful and very easy, I want to say. I really think that's something that everybody can do for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
And
So
the way, yeah, sorry.
how do people work with you? I know you also do coaching, and how does
Mm-hmm.
that kind of
Mm-hmm.
look? How do you
Mm-hmm.
what do you coach around, I guess is the best way to ask that
Yeah,
question.
yeah. Well, it's kind of taken two or three or a couple of different directions. Like right now, I'll just kind of use what I'm doing right now. So I have a few mediums. They're practicing mediums. They're developing mediums, and I work with them. Our sessions can be conversation and philosophy, and what happens if this comes up? What happens if that comes up? I have one gal in there, and she has like been raised with the horses, like she is just such a farm girl and very, very connected to the animals. And like that is her dream, to do like equine therapy and really work with people and the animals together. And animal communication just comes through. We were teasing her the other day because she's like, I could just hear the horse speaking to me as if the horse was speaking to me. She's like, I couldn't even believe it. It was like they just said like a sentence to her, and she was just like really blown away by her own abilities. It was really sweet. So working with her, I'm helping her to, helping is kind of a funny word sometimes, but I'm guiding her in her own abilities to see that she can trust herself and that she can trust the information that's coming through. I'm sitting there going, well, of course you're connected to the animals because it's what you've been doing all of your life. But for her, it's like this perspective shift, right? It's like, oh, I'm actually doing something. There's actually something happening here. She's not just like going for a horseback ride. She's going for a horseback ride, but her horse is also kind of talking to her, and she's picking up on other people's animals. And so I'm there to like facilitate, hold that space for her and facilitate that learning for her and practice, and finding people for her to practice on and that sort of thing. So she's one of the gals in that group. The other two are more sort of traditional like psychic mediums, where they're connecting into past loved ones. um, and I'm also doing like one-to-one mentorship, where it's, we just check in with each other, talk about all the things that are the person might be going through in their learning experiences, whether it's they're learning Reiki or they're learning mediumship, or just kind of personal growth and development. Because that's the thing, right? When you start to declare, okay, I'm going to be a Reiki healer, I'm going to be an animal communicator, I'm going to be a medium. And again, I know those are all labels, but they all kind of go together. What can happen is then you go through this, your own kind of personal healing experience. So there's kind of help and support in that way as well, and just building community. Um, creating a space where people can talk about these things, like I think that's a really big piece where the people can feel seen and heard and understood, so that they can really let that part of themselves come up to the surface. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And I would imagine that many times people who have gifts, and some people are more tuned in than others, um, and they might not realize how unique they are in that. Like the gal that speaks to animals or to horses, I mean, she probably thinks everybody does this. It doesn't recognize how unique the process is to her.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, because it feels so natural to her. It's something that she's
Right.
always done. Yeah. No, and I love that you said the word unique as well. And I think what I see in my communities and in the women that I'm working with is that it's about each woman finding their unique abilities and their unique gifts, or however you want to say that, their unique services that they have in the world. Because, like, what I have to offer is from my experience and what I've learned and my abilities, and what the other person has is unique to them. And I feel like this is really coming through. And I think that that can be a little bit of the tricky part, is that you're kind of coming out and going, is there anybody else like me? Do other people do this? And like what you just said for this one gal that I'm working with, I mean, like, she's just always done it, and so you're trying to tease it out and see it for what it is. No, not everybody can do this. Not everybody sees animals that way. Not everybody hears animals that way. Not everybody understands them that way, right? So yeah, it really is. It's special, but it's not special in that, like, she's better than anybody else. It's just special in it's her unique offering and her way to be in the world. And I think I could say that about any woman.
I would have to agree with you. Every single person, even though I know there are other people that communicate with animals, there are others out there that I know of, but everybody does it in a unique way. No two people do things exactly the same. They may use the same sort of modalities to affect change in others, but the way it happens is always unique. And I think it's even unique to each situation, because every client you have, if they're one-on-one, the dynamic is different than if you're in a group, because then there's the group dynamic that comes into play and the energy of everybody working together. It's so interesting to me.
Yeah, it is. And I now, like, when I'm teaching Reiki, that's exactly what I say to people. I'm like, how Reiki is going to look for you is going to be different than how it's going to look for anybody else, because what it's going to do is you show up and you're like, okay, I'm ready to learn this thing. I'm ready to be tuned in. It's going to tune up or amplify whatever it is that you already have kind of going. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, if you're really drawn to animals, if you're an artist, if you're a nurse, if you're a mom, if you're a grandma, if you're a baker, like, I feel like what it does is it just connects you a little bit deeper and, like, hones in and gets things like refocused. So it turns up the dial on whatever it is that you already have within you, right? So it can look different for, if you have 10 people in a class, it could very well manifest in 10 different ways for each person. And that's what I love about it. And the other thing that you said there, like when you were talking about animal communication, and I think this goes for all healing. And this is what I love about Reiki, and which can also be a difficult part to define Reiki, is it's going to do whatever it is that you need in this moment. So if I have 10 Reiki sessions booked for the year, it's each one is going to be different depending on what I'm going through. If I have physical ailments, if I'm going through an emotional shift, if I'm mentally stressed or fatigued, or I'm just in balance, but I just need a little boost, or whatever it is in the moment that you need. That's what the energy is going to do. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of, the radio where you tune in the station and then
Totally.
you can turn up the volume or down the volume. And Reiki is like you found the station, but you maybe need to tweak it a little bit and then deal with the volume. See what.
Absolutely. And I think all of us are going through that right now, whether they're into being a light worker or not. I think that we're all getting this sort of tuning in our heart spaces, because our hearts are like transmitters. And I feel like that tuning in is getting stronger for a lot of people, and just letting go of old thought patterns and old conditioning, and really seeing like what no longer serves, and what they do want to focus on, and what their heart's desires are, and letting themselves be more led by their heart. Like, I think that's for everybody. I hope.
I feel that more now in the last couple of years than I've ever felt it before. It just seems like we've reached a kind of a tipping point in society at large. And this is a worldwide phenomenon. It's not like in just one country or another. It's everywhere, where people are really feeling like they want to be seen. They're recognizing that they have something to contribute, and they maybe aren't sure how that looks, but they're starting to wake up to the idea that, life was meant to be more than, you grow up, you go to school, you get a job, you retire, you watch television for 10 years, and then you die. I mean, I don't think we were created for that. We were created to have an experience. We talk about souls having a human experience, or spiritual beings having a human experience. It's being able to tap into the other energies that are around you, and the heart's transmitting. It's like the morphological shift, where there's just like a knowing. Everybody is coming to this knowing that it's important that we raise the consciousness globally, because what the old things that were happening aren't sustainable. And just by us all coming together and wanting what's best for ourselves, and in wanting what's best for ourselves, it really does help the whole consciousness together. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
100%. Yeah, no, it all made sense. Yes, I 100% agree. I led a new moon circle this morning, and that you can feel that when you gather together with that intention of meditating and healing and taking in the energies that are just happening at this moment. And we were talking about that exact thing of like, if I come in with my light and who I am and where I am and all of me, just the way it is, and each of the other individuals do that, then we're creating a new light, or we're creating one light, or however you want to see that. But it's like we all get brighter, and it's unmistakable now. I think once you feel that, you can't, like, you can try really hard to turn it off, but it's almost like it's more effort at this point. And I feel like that's what you're saying about this tipping point, is like people are like, that way kind of made sense, but never really made sense. And now I'm being like, it's like you're kind of just being swayed way over the other way. And then there's so many people that are kind of going, well, now what? Like, I'm curious if you see this as well, as like, I see so many, mostly women. I'm sure these things are happening with men as well, but I just work mostly with women, and they're going like, I can't do the other thing anymore. It's their job, or it's how they were running their time, managing their time or whatever. And they're just like, I can't do it anymore. And so they're trying to like, what's the new way? And there's this kind of in between space that's really exciting because that's where all the potential is. It's like, okay, now we can actually create things in a different way.
And they
So,
are being created. And it's
yeah.
almost like you reach a point where it's just like, no, I'm not doing that. I choose to do something
Mm-hmm.
different. And
Mm-hmm.
I choose to take whatever the consequences are. And you can always make different decisions. Every decision has a consequence. And, you know, you might like some of them, you might not like some of them, but it comes as a full package. It's not like you can just only pick the decisions that are going to have great consequences, because even great
Mm-hmm.
consequences have negative consequences as part of the package. So you're going to get both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's just the exploration of the juxtaposition of the consequences, even of the new decisions people are making, and and the decision that, you know, no, we don't like the way this is working in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't even have to like do anything. It's just the thoughts that
Mm-hmm.
that was not a good way to have life go. You know, wars are a good example of that. You know, we get dragged into, as a country,
Mm-hmm.
into wars. You know, they're just people.
Yeah.
People are being affected by this, and they didn't really have a lot of say in it. It's like not everybody in a country thinks one way. They're all just
Right.
individual people. Like, you know, they have
Exactly.
ideas, they have families, they have jobs,
Mm-hmm.
they have desires and aspirations. And I think that as more people are like open to the idea that, you know, I don't I don't feel like I have to take sides. I can just love individuals. I
Mm-hmm.
can accept them as they are. And the more people that do that, the less energy there is available for all of this negative stuff that happens,
Mm-hmm.
because a certain group of people are like, they want these consequences because it
Mm-hmm.
enriches them in power and in money.
Yeah. And I feel like the irony of that is that they're usually the smaller group.
Mhm.
Like it's usually the majority that doesn't want that way, but yet somehow the smaller group has obtained whatever level of power that they needed to have to be able to do that. And everybody else is going, well, wait, we're the majority and we don't want that. So
They're
I'm
thinking we don't want that,
yeah,
instead of I want this instead. And that's where the shift has
yeah,
happened, is
yeah,
people are waking up and saying, hey, I want this. This is much better.
yeah.
And as you focus on the this is much better, you
Mm-hmm.
start bringing it into your life.
Yeah.
It's really the secret of manifesting anything. It's just
Yeah,
focusing
absolutely.
on it.
Well, and I don't know if this quite goes with the bigger example of like the war piece, but I think within ourselves too, we have, you know, just I like the way you were talking about consequences and like not always doing the thing just for the positive consequence, but sometimes you have to say no to the thing even though it might be kind of messy, let's say. Um, but there's so much power in just saying, you know what, I'm done doing it that way. It's just doesn't serve me anymore. It doesn't serve anybody. I don't like it. I don't want to do it that way anymore. And then maybe, yeah, maybe you do have to sit there for a minute in not knowing what's the better way, but at least we can say, no, we're not doing that anymore. So, but I think people are I agree with you. I think it's happening more and people are realizing that they it is individually makes for collective, right? So if individually we're all going, okay, we're done with that, we're not doing it that way anymore, it's gonna manifest collectively, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's so amazing to me. And I think
It
that
is.
people like you actually facilitate this, because you offer a glimpse into the energy that's at work around
Mm-hmm,
us.
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
and knowing, you know, past lives and soul
Mm-hmm.
contracts and getting messages from the other side, and hearing, understanding that you do have spiritual guides and you do have other powers that you can call
Mm-hmm.
on to. I don't, everybody has different names for them, but
Yeah.
they exist. They
Mm-hmm.
they are real entities, and they are here to help you, and they're standing by. Operators are standing by, as they used to say.
Well, exactly. I get that visual all the time of Wilma Flintstone, in the Flintstones, and they had the big shell phones, and it's like this
Yeah.
big massive shell, and they're like, hello. And that visual always comes to me because it is that easy. And I don't know. I guess this is a human, I guess it's the ego brain where we think we're alone. And it's like, no, actually, like you have a whole team around you. You are not alone, and you can feel them just kind of naturally, or that just knowing that they're there, and or you can call them in, and I still need this reminder sometimes, like if I'm, especially when I'm going through a hard time, ironically, for some reason, that's sometimes when you forget that you can ask for help. And thankfully, I have good people in my life that say, ask for support. Ask for support for the person that you're worried about. Ask for support for that person that needs healing. And we can do that for anybody. Like if we, hear something hard has happened to somebody that we know through somebody else or whatever, it's kind of, there's distance. We can still say, oh my gosh, I'm just sending them so much love and support. And you can just like, I hope that they feel supported. And there's so much strength in that intention, and it connects us as well to that compassion. Yeah.
And it absolutely works. Intentions, that is a scientific fact. There have been lots of experiments done that show that. And I have just recently, like today, been reminded of it again. A really dear friend underwent surgery, and she put it out there what she was going to go through, and she's lived in pain for many, many years of her life, because of an accident that she sustained, a neck injury. And just the level of pain that she was at was so high, and the surgery was supposed to fix it. And she's got all of these people holding space for her and holding space for the surgeon to really do an excellent job and to know what to do. And he came to her just before the surgery and said, I'm going to do it this way. I woke up this morning and I just knew this is what I was supposed to do. I believe that was from all these people holding the space for him to know the exact thing he needed to do. So he did the surgery, and instead of 2 incisions, she only has 1. And he came in the next day and he's like, how do you feel? She's like, it's just a little bit worse than I was living with for the last 10 years. I mean, and he had hyped this surgery up to like, it's going to be really painful and it's going to take a long time for you to heal. And she just blew away. She's like, Tylenol's enough. It'll get me over this.
Wow.
I really believe it's the power of all of these people holding intentions that she's going to heal quickly, and that it's going to be a miracle that, she's not going to be in this pain that she's been in for so long, and that you would have all of the information he needed.
Well, yeah, and I think we can connect to that, right? Because we can go there and be like, oh, can you imagine if it was me that was in that much pain? What would I desire? I would desire relief. And we can connect into that. And I love that you brought in sending that energy to the surgeon as well. And I'm sure it filled the space that she was in, the room that she was in, the nurses, the tools that they use, like fill it. Just send it all, send it all. And the thing is too, is like the trust comes in there again too, is because like we don't have to know exactly what it is. That's why we have surgeons, because they do know that exactness of things. But we can just send it all, knowing, okay, whatever it is serves her highest and greatest good, which is obviously hope to be pain free, right? And that's enough. Yeah, we don't have to
Oh,
know all the answers. Yeah, we can send so much. We can do so much just with that intention. I love that reminder. Yeah.
pretty amazing. So how do people work with you? How do they get in touch with you? What?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. As soon as you start speaking about your friend, I energetically, I'm like, let me get in there. I just like, it's so funny. I can't help myself. I think I've always been that way. Yeah, so I have a website, Medium Lori O. Pretty straightforward. Medium Lori O is a name that I chose after becoming a medium, and it just kind of has a ring to it. So I do other things, but that's the title. I'm pretty active on Instagram. I'm always posting about new offerings that I have and little specials and things that I'm doing in there. Um, yeah, so that's I guess the way that people can get in touch with me. I offer workshops. I do like I'm just doing a collaboration with a friend right now. She's down in California. And we're both very passionate about the pathway of learning how to work with being an empath. And so we've called it Empowered Empath. And, we were talking about this sort of awakening, and people are kind of like, okay, I know I don't want to do it this way anymore, but I don't even know what I want to do. And they're kind of in this in between. And so many of them are empaths, and they're picking up on all the information, and it can be overwhelming. And so we're kind of getting in there and pulling things apart for people, and teaching about energetic hygiene and clearing out old patterns and all of these kinds of things. Yeah, I do development circles and mentorship, as we were saying, for Reiki and mediumship and sort of personal development. And I'm feeling sort of the nudge or the push a little bit more towards guiding a little bit more about spiritual entrepreneurship as well, because it's not an easy path, and it comes with challenges of switching from like doing the spiritual practice and having the abilities and doing the work to creating a business out of that. That's been a big learning curve for me. So I'm getting more people that are kind of asking for guidance around that as well. Yeah.
It's really
It
interesting that
all
you're
kind of goes
providing that
together.
too. It does really go together.
Sorry?
And it does all go together. And it's really good that you're providing that for people, because it, for a long time, people with spiritual gifts almost had to hide them. It's like,
Yeah.
now it's like coming out of the closet. Yeah.
I
People,
hope so. I think there are still some that are, hiding and or needing to, like, feeling the need to. That's the
yeah,
thing
that's the thing.
I think has been sometimes when people ask me what I do, it is that kind of like it's so natural to me that sometimes it's hard to define or describe. And that's one of them, is that I've always been able to do all the things. I started listening to chakra meditation tapes when I was 12 years old, aromatherapy, all that stuff. Louise Hay, I was like 17. I started like mind body connection, and then just kind of dove right in from there. But I forget sometimes that some people can't even say to their partners that they do these things, whereas it's all been very, very open for me, which I'm very, very grateful for. Sorry. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, so I feel like, yeah, I don't know, that's kind of almost another conversation, because I wish that people didn't have to hide. I'm like, come on, it's safe. It's okay. It's okay. But it's complicated sometimes for people.
So if you're out there and you're feeling lonely, talk to Lori.
Yes, yes. And yeah, and I do, yeah, it's important. Community is important for sure, for sure. Whether you find that in your own community, online, just finding people that you can just really just let it out and just feel all the feelings and talk about all the things. And whether you're taking action and actually doing a thing or building a business or whatever level you're at, I think it's important at every stage. Yeah, yeah, I think we need that.
I think so too. So, Lori, What's the one thing that you hope the audience takes away from our conversation today?
I feel so like I want people to feel empowered. I want people to feel empowered that they can turn inward and they can go in with love and confidence and just really like getting to know yourself more. I feel like there's so much power just in that. If that is the only kind of spiritual practice that you have, is spending time with yourself, listening to yourself, listening for guidance, journaling, sitting with a cup of tea and just being like super mindful, or going in the garden and just really feeling. We didn't even talk about nature. That's another big passion for me, but like, you know, getting your hands in the dirt or touching that tree, any little things that you can, you know, practice for yourself to get to know yourself better. I hope that everybody takes any amount of time, big or small, to do that for themselves, because it's just, you really can release a lot of anxiety and fear and worry just in feeling more connected to yourself. And then that can lead you to feeling more connected to everything. Yeah.
I think it works back and forth. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
exactly.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Lori. This has been amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. I loved it. Loved it.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. Be sure to like the episode and let us know in the comments what your biggest takeaway was. You can support the podcast and grow your business or coaching practice by taking advantage of the tools offered in our store, which you can find at heartlifecoach.com/store. See you next time as we hear from another life, health, or transformational coach being the change they seek in the world.